Right, hello class. We're going to go over the generic outline template for 1102 essays. This outline template will apply to every essay that you are doing. It's essentially the same assignment sheet every time. So please make modifications where appropriate, depending on what essay you're writing. So I'm going to go ahead and share the screen for you. All right, and here we are. So it's important to note first that this doesn't deal with MLA formatting or citations or any of that stuff. It doesn't mention a works cited page or anything. You're going to have that stuff. So that is a separate affair. Go and check the quick guide that's available to you. Go and make sure that your MLA is correct. But this basically just lists the various parts of the essay in order and kind of tells you what I expect from each one. Some students don't like to edit the document because of the big chunks of text and stuff. It doesn't look really neat. So you have the option. If you just want to go in there and edit this document and fill in the blanks and save it and resubmit it, that's fine. If you want to just use this document as a prompt to create your own Word document where you just list the parts in order so that it's a little bit neater and it doesn't have all that extra writing on it, that's fine also. I'm not super strict about formatting when it comes to outlines. The main purpose of the outline is to get you to plan the essay, to get you to structure the essay and have it all laid out. The other thing too is that if you don't have every idea perfectly developed, it's not the end of the world. You do want to fill something in for each blank regarding your plan of execution or what it is that you are going to do. But if you don't have it all mapped out just yet, that's fine. That's why it's an outline, right? You're just kind of trying to lay out the general structure. I would just say don't leave any blanks or anything like that because you'll get deductions for that stuff. But the first one is going to be the pre-writing. That's the first thing you got to do. So number one, tell me the text that you're going to use. Some of the essays that I have, you have a choice of text to write about. Some I tell you which ones to write about. So tell me which text you're going to be working with. They must be those assigned in class. If I didn't assign it on the syllabus, you cannot write about it. The next thing is list any themes and topics that you will be exploring in this analytical essay. Be sure to refer to the assignment sheet to stay within the parameters of the assignment. So themes and topics, anything that you're going to be dealing with, that you want to explore. Every essay prompt, every assignment sheet, that's what I mean by prompt, is different. So you're going to want to make sure that you follow the guidelines of each one. Sometimes I give you some themes and make you pick from them. Sometimes I just leave it open. I like to give students opportunities to be creative with it generally, so I don't put a lot of parameters, but sometimes I do. So make sure to check out the assignment sheet for the writing assignment so that you can see what themes you need to be dealing with if there are any guidelines for that. Okay, so you list those out. The next thing is going to be a title for the essay. Now, the thing about the titles is that I don't really want essay one as a title or fiction essay or Edgar Allan Poe essay or whatever, because those titles are kind of a snooze fest, right? What we need is to treat the title like it's part of the hook, which is the attention getter of the essay. So try to come up with a snazzy title. You know, it's not the most important thing. I wouldn't spend a terribly extensive amount of time on it. But if you come up with a catchy title, it really does work in your favor. And you can imagine if you were published in some sort of publication, if you had a snoozer title, it really wouldn't help. Okay, so part two is the intro paragraph. Now I'm a formula guy. I like to give you formulas to make things easy to remember. So for my intro paragraphs, I do what's called hook, line, and sinker. This is a colloquialism that you may have heard before. Hook, line, and sinker refers to completely duping someone. Like, I sold him the car with the faulty transmission and I got him hook, line, and sinker. So it's kind of got a negative connotation. It's also related to fishing in a more broad sense. But I just find that it's easy to remember because each one of these parts represents a part of the introductory paragraph, right? The first paragraph of your essay. So the hook, to put it plainly, is the attention getter. That you've got to get my attention, you've got to get me invested because formal writing can be a little bit tedious. It can be somewhat boring depending on who the person is. And so you want to be able to catch your reader's attention and to get them invested in what it is that you're writing. So hooks may include, but are not limited to, relevant quotes, striking contextual facts and information, vivid and descriptive language, and appeals to powerful emotions. Hooks should be between 1 to 3 sentences in length. So one thing I will say, I say relevant quotes, Be careful with quotes because a lot of quotes are fake. If you just pull something from the internet, brainyquotes.com or whatever, there's a very strong chance it's going to be fake. The internet is full of fake quotes. So make sure that you're careful about that. Get my attention, make sure it's relevant, make sure it's captivating, and get me invested in the essay. The next part is going to be the line section. And the line is all relevant contextual information that is needed to support the thesis statement. So the question is, what do I need to know in order to understand your argument and to understand where you are coming from? This may include, but is not limited to, historical information, contextual details, definition of key themes, movements, or literary concepts, as well as important details about the text itself. The line section should be 3 to 5 sentences. It can be a little bit longer. If you've not developed a complete one, just kind of give a general layout. So that the line section, the key concept there is relevant context. What do I need to know? I don't need to know everything, right? If you're writing about, for example, V for Vendetta, which is based in Britain, I don't need to know the entire history of British literature or anything like that. I just need to know, like, what are the general concepts surrounding this, and what's the historical framework. And that one, of course, is a little more recent. But depending on what text you're writing about, you're going to want to provide context so that your reader doesn't get confused or doesn't have questions that are unanswered. Because you really want to have all of the information readily available so that your reader can access your argument and what it is that you're trying to do. So that's going to be the context, the line section, rather. The sinker is the thesis statement, plainly, which constitutes the main argument, keyword there, argument of the essay. The best thesis statements are specific and concise. They put forth a clear argumentative claim about what the text is doing, and they often include some indication of the way the essay will be structured, such as mentioning subpoints that reference multiple textual specifics. The thesis should be about 1, maybe 2 sentences in length. I don't know why I sounded like a horse there. Maybe 2 sentences in length, but really 1 is the target, because 2, you're kind of getting in the weeds a little bit. If you're juggling a lot, I can understand it, but 1 is really what you're looking for. So include a thesis draft below. Now, the key thing here is you're using the assignment sheet, the essay prompt, to generate an argument. And an argument is not an observation. So a lot of times in literature class, the thing that makes literature class different from Composition 1101 is that you're doing a lot more reading and you're analyzing those things that you read. And a lot of students, when they read something and they think they have to write about what they read, instantly their brain goes to book report. I'm writing a book report. He wants to know what happened in the story. He wants to know what this and that. The thing is that I'm not looking for a book report, right? I teach all of these texts. I've taught most of them for a while. There's nothing you can tell me about the text that I don't already know. I'm not looking for you to regurgitate a bunch of information that you accumulated while reading it. What I am looking for is for you to make an argument about what the text is doing, how it does it, and why that is important. That is very different, right? You're putting forth an argument. Now, each of these assignment sheets is going to ask you questions to help you generate responses that in the form of an argument. But if you're not doing an argument and you're not doing analysis, and you just write me a book report on one of the texts or several of the texts, you're not going to get a very good grade on this assignment, on the outline or the essay, right? Okay, so you got to put a single sentence argument, thesis statement. Next, once you've completed the intro paragraph, then you start the body paragraphs, and that's pretty formulaic as well, although I don't have anything as catchy as hook, line, and sinker yet. You're going to want to start out with topic sentence 1. You're going to include a topic sentence as the very first sentence of the paragraph. Similar to the thesis, the topic should put forth a claim, an argumentative claim about what the text is doing, but it should be more honed in on a specific part of the text that supports the thesis claim. So if you think about the relationship between the thesis and the topic sentences, is the thesis is the big picture argument. The topic sentences are the smaller, more compartmentalized pieces of that argument. So it's like a compartment, like a piece, right, of the thesis, but it still accomplishes the same goal. It's still an argumentative statement. You're just looking in at a textual specific, right? So specific instances within the text that show the thing you're trying to argue, right? So once you've done that, you put forth your claim. This is what I'm going to argue in this paragraph. Once you've made an argumentative claim, the thing you need after that is evidence. Now, what kind of evidence? Well, again, it depends on the assignment. Some assignments I ask for secondary sources, which means I need you to go and engage with scholarship on Galileo related to the text that you're writing about, or something similar, something of the kind, so that you can provide evidence in the form of a quote or a paraphrasing that is cited and referenced to support the claim that you have made. So this is really about argument. If you think back to when you went through 1101, the argumentation unit, we tell you how to put forth an argument and how to fortify that argument with evidence. That's effectively what you're doing. So depending on the parameters of the assignment, you're either going to get that, well, you'll usually get at least one piece of evidence from the primary text, which is whatever source whatever text that you're dealing with, whatever thing you've read that you're writing about. The secondary sources, that's going to be academic stuff that you find on Galileo and similar databases. So that stuff is dependent on the assignment sheet. Sometimes you want one of each in a paragraph, depending. You want a piece of textual information and maybe a piece of scholarship to reinforce it. It depends on the assignment sheet and the parameters, but evidence goes in essentially after the claim is made, right? So once you have the evidence, and you presented the evidence with a lead-in statement, according to one scholar, or as we see in chapter 8 of the text, comma, quote, give the citation, or if you don't want to quote, you want to paraphrase, which is risky, paraphrase, give the citation. Then you move to the analysis portion. The analysis is going to be your framing of the evidence and explaining how it proves the claim. So the way that I talk about this in my 1101 class is I say, all right, the way you want to think about it is you don't want the evidence to speak for itself, okay? You want to explain exactly the conclusion that you want your reader to draw. And the reason this is because two people can look at the same piece of evidence and draw different conclusions. Now, usually, depending on the situation, one of them may be right or wrong, right? But a lot of times they will draw different conclusions. So if you want them to draw a specific conclusion about the evidence, you want to spell it out and explain it in your own words very thoroughly in a very direct and concise manner so that they know exactly what you want them to take away from that piece of evidence. If you don't do that, they may get a misinterpretation or they may not follow you. So the example I always use in class is I say, explain the bloody knife. And it's a bit of a macabre example, but nevertheless, it works. If you're to walk into class and you see a bloody knife on the table, what does that mean? What conclusions do you draw? Now, most students would say, well, I'm going to run out of the room. And you would be smart to do so. Nobody would fault you for that, right? But it's not necessarily true that the bloody knife itself represents an injury. It could very well represent like someone, maybe someone it's a prop for the drama class, right? The drama club. Maybe they cut themselves by accident. It doesn't have to mean that they attacked someone, right? So there are all kinds of different possibilities that the bloody knife could mean. And depending on who you are, you may draw different conclusions. You may react differently. So if you have somebody standing there that's going, hey, don't be alarmed because this bloody knife represents this and that instead of someone being attacked. Oh, okay, well, that's good, right? So that's what you want to do. You want to be the person that explains the bloody knife, that explains the evidence away, that says this is the conclusion that you should draw, and don't draw these other conclusions because they're not the ones that we're looking for. Kind of a wordy way to say it, but you want to analyze the quote and explain how the quote proves the claim. This is all a very argumentative, formulaic process. After that, you have a transitional statement. Now, I like to say that transitional statements are optional. And the reason being is that sometimes the transitional statement really just reads like a rephrasing or a restating of the next topic sentence. And that can be a redundancy. It can be something that it doesn't help your writing very much. So if you get rid of the transitional statement, I'm not necessarily going to fault you for it. They do help. They can make your writing much stronger when they're done effectively. So a sentence that transfers from one paragraph into the next in a smooth and clear way and doesn't repeat the next topic sentence or resemble the next topic sentence too heavily, it can be a good tactic to kind of smooth those pieces together and make the essay a more cohesive document. So transitional statements are advised. They are not necessarily required, although they can be very helpful. And so include those, if you like, 1 to 2 sentences to facilitate a shift between this paragraph and the next one. And then you just repeat this process of the body paragraph another 2 times. So you have body paragraph 2, body paragraph 3, following the exact same process. You're putting forth the topic sentence, you're providing evidence, you're analyzing the evidence, you have an optional transition, and then you're moving into the conclusion paragraph. Now, the thing about the conclusion that I require that's a little bit different. Most of my students, when I say, what do you expect from the conclusion? They will tell me what their teachers have always told them, what they've heard since they were a kid, basically, since they first started writing essays, which is that you should summarize the argument that you have already made. This does not make sense to me in a 3-page essay, even up to like a 5-page essay. The reason being is that why do you summarize in the conclusion? Well, once you've read, like, let's say you read a 15-page argument. That's a lot of material. Having that recap at the end may in fact be helpful because you just slogged through 15 pages of weighty content. And you may need to have that summarized and sort of concisely stated so that you know exactly what it is that you are supposed to take away, right? So that makes sense in like a longer paper, but in a 3 to 5 page, general 1101, 1102 style paper, I don't really understand why we need a conclusion that restates everything that I just read not 2 pages ago, right? It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. What I prefer instead is for students to do several things. You can achieve the tone of closure. That's number one. Give the reader your sense that you have wrapped up what you meant to say. This is a tonal thing, but it's also addressing any open ends that may still exist or something like that. You also want to develop something called the so what factor. The so what factor is, why does this matter? Why does your interpretation about this specific text matter to you or to readers? What can we take away? What does this tell us that we don't already know? That's called the so what factor. And it's very important for analytical essays because we have to know why this is important. We have to know why this is reading it. Now, I can hear the cynical students out there saying it isn't important and we're reading it because you made us do it. And that's fair, but pretend, okay? Pretend for me if you would. So let's see. You can also address open-ended questions. You can ask questions to leave your reader thinking. You can bring in peripherally related subjects that may not have fit into the other areas of the essay, but which you want to address as like a way to sort of show the avenues for exploration and where they may lead. You really have a lot of freedom in the conclusion. Freedom to tie up, to wrap it up, basically. Freedom to put a bow on the present, so to speak. You can do a lot of different things, except repeat yourself. Please do not just, because sometimes students will literally go back and copy and paste sentences that they've already written, which is just totally redundant and doesn't help your writing at all, right? This is not just about filling all of the requirements for the essay. It's about being an effective writer, right? An effective communicator. So have a conclusion. I always call the conclusion the most difficult and the least important part of the essay. It's the most difficult because what do you say once you've already said everything if you're not going to repeat yourself? And it's the least important because you've already said everything. So like, it's not super important to even have a conclusion, but you do need one because otherwise your reader would just go, wait, what? Are they done? Why did they just trail off into space like that? There's no closure. There's no resolution. That's what they're looking for, right? That's what they're looking for in the conclusion. So that's what you want to provide. Brainstorm me a conclusion paragraph, and then you're done with the outline assignment. Now, of course, since you're writing about literature and you're going to need to have a works cited page, right? You're going to need to include those sources. But since this is not an MLA-oriented assignment, this is just to get you to map out the essay. I have left that off of here. If you would look at the quick guide, which I believe, I'm not going to specify the location because it may be different for each class, but there is a quick guide, an MLA quick guide available to you. It's 4 pages long, and it handles 90% of the issues with MLA formatting. Read the quick guide before you submit every essay, right? And make sure that your MLA is right, because leaving it off of the outline doesn't mean that it's not important. It's very important, and it constitutes a decent chunk of the grade. As of now, when I film this video, it's 20%. So 20% of the essay grade. So please do take it seriously. And make sure you include a works cited page. Remember, if you use sources and you don't quote inside them and you don't have it properly referenced, then you are, even if you did it by accident, that's a plagiarism violation. And that can be very ugly depending on the circumstance. So that's all I have for you regarding the essay outline template. If you have any questions, please let me know.